Hello, we thank you for joining us for this Bible study of the Banking Blessings Ministry. Today we are going to look at interceding for others, intercession, the power of intercession, what makes intercession effectively. Intercession basically is praying for other people, appealing to God for the sake of other people. We will look at a few good examples in the Bible of intercessions that were effective, and from there we will learn what makes intercession, what is the nature of intercession, and what makes it effective. I think this is very easy to learn because we have very good examples in the Bible. We will learn. We will use the example of a paralyzed man. A paralyzed man was brought to Jesus and he heals the paralyzed man. He forgives him his sins and heals him. The man was brought to Jesus by some men that looked for him, really went out of their way to find him. It was not easy for them at all, and we'll see that. So they found him against great difficulties, and when he saw their faith, that's exactly how the Bible put it, when he saw their faith, he forgave the man and healed him. We'll look at this, we'll base this mainly on Mark chapter 2. It is also described in Matthew chapter 9 and Luke chapter 5. But we'll find that the description in Mark chapter 2 has more details in it. Then we will take examples from other passages in the Bible. Some are things we've read before that give us examples of intercession. Well, we'll begin with Jesus returning to Capernaum after he had gone to the wilderness. He started his ministry, did the Sermon on the Mount, which we looked at in quite some detail over 2 Bible studies. Then he returns to Capernaum. By this time he was very popular. People knew about him from far and wide, and they were going to him. The most attractive thing bringing the healing. They heard that whoever was sick, whoever was possessed by the demon, whoever had any problem, they just go to him. So people were coming from all over to see him, and they were gathered in where he was staying. The place was filled up. There were people all over the place, inside, outside, every place was fully packed. So packed that it was difficult for any person to come in and see him. Physically difficult. There was just no room anymore. Every space inside and outside was occupied by people. So it was difficult to meet with him. Let us read about this. Is the setting of the first example of intercession that we will look at. Let us read about the setting in Mark chapter 2, verses 1 and 2.
A few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home. They gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached the word to them.
He preached the word to them. There were people all over the place. Then part of some of the people that came to see him was this group of men that brought a paralyzed man. The man was paralyzed, so he couldn't walk by himself, so they had him lying on a kind of mat, and then 4 people carried the mat, but there were more than 4. It's a large group. They came and realized that, and their purpose was to bring the paralyzed man to Jesus, because they believed that Jesus would heal him if only they brought him to him. But they didn't have a way to come in because the place was packed. They could not get in. So they looked for what they could do, and in desperation they decided to climb the roof, make a hole in the roof, and then from that hole they lowered the man gradually to where Jesus was staying. Let us read about this in Mark chapter 2, verses 3 and 4.
Some men came, bringing to him a paralyzed man, carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it, and then lowered the mat to the man was lying on.
Well, so, yes, they literally climbed the roof, made a hole in the roof, and then from that hole they had to lift the man up, of course, to the roof, and then from there they lowered him down to where Jesus was staying, where Jesus was. They just wanted to get this man to Jesus. They wanted to get to Jesus, to present this man's case to Jesus. Of course, Jesus was there physically, so they needed to get the man to him physically. But this is really intercession that we are talking about. So these days, Jesus is not here in person, he is here in spirit. So you cannot physically carry somebody to him, but you can pray to him. You can bring somebody's case to him, exactly the same way that these men carried a man physically, a man that needed healing physically to him. So that is intercession. At that time, it was physical intercession. Now it is spiritual. Well, the Bible said that when he saw their faith, think about it. They took this man, they got there, they said, if we can only get this man to Jesus, he will be healed. So they did whatever they could. And what they could do included making a hole in the roof, lifting the man up and lowering him through the hole. So when Jesus saw this, he recognized their faith and responded positively. He looked at the man, forgave him all his sins, and then healed him. Let us read about this in Mark 2, verse 5 and verses 10 to 12. We're only reading a few verses of the account.
When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." So he said to the man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this."
We have never seen anything like this. So he saw their faith. They said, when he saw their faith, when he saw that these people believe so much that if only they can get the man to him, he will be healed. He responded positively to their demand. It is like they prayed for the man. That's the way it will happen today. You will pray for the man. And when they prayed, he responded positively. First, remember, it's not about the man's faith. No, it was the faith of the people that appealed to him on behalf of the man. The people that brought the man to him. So today it will be a group of people or a person that prays for other people. So when he saw their faith, because of their faith, he healed the man. He forgave the man his sins. So, which means that what they did, bringing the man to him, was very effective. The intercession, presenting another person's case to God in prayer, will be exactly what these people did. In this case, God was there physically in the form of Christ. But today, he is there, but we have to get to him spiritually. So when you see somebody that has a problem, and you get on your knees and pray on behalf of that person, God will listen to you the same way that he listened to these people. Well, let us look at what the men did to understand, what type of intercession will appeal to God the same way that it appealed to God in this incident. Well, we see something that is very strong here, that is compassion. Compassion is you recognize a problem and you commit to doing what you can to solve that problem. You recognize a need, you commit to doing what you can to provide for the need. That is compassion. That's literally is the dictionary definition of compassion. And that, you remember, is what God, that's one of the reasons God created us, is to be a channel for his compassion to other people. So they had compassion on the man. They wanted to help him. They saw his problem. They wanted, if they could heal him by themselves, they would. But they couldn't. But they recognized that if only they can take him to God. In that case, it was physically taking him to God. Today, it will be taking him to God in prayer. So their intercession was motivated by compassion. They saw a need and committed to doing what they could. And what they could was, of course, to take the man to Jesus. And you could see that it wasn't easy for them. They did it against all difficulties, against great difficulties. This man was lying down, he wasn't moving around on his own, so they had to get him there first. 4 of them carried him. Well, that wasn't enough. Now they have to devise a way to lift him to the roof, then devise a way to lower him from the roof to Jesus. So they took him to Jesus against great difficulties. Then they believed that if only they could get him to Jesus, that if they got him to Jesus, he would be healed. That is called faith. So you have their intercession was driven by compassion, and it was driven by selflessness. They were not interested in themselves, they were only interested in the man. Then it was delivered with faith. They had faith that their prayer, that they are going to Jesus, will be effective. So Jesus forgave the man and healed him because of their faith, not his faith. His faith, in fact, has no role in this matter. It was their faith that healed him. That is called intercession, praying for another person. Well, let us look at compassion and intercession in detail. We've kind of talked about it. Compassion is you recognize a need, commit to doing what you can to provide for the need. In our discussion of the Sermon on the Mount, Christ talked extensively about compassion. He said that blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. So compassion is one of the reasons that is recognizing the need around you and committing to doing what you can to provide for the need is one of the reasons God created us. God created each one of us to be his provider assistant. Being his provider assistant means that when there is a need, he will place somebody in position to provide for that need. And the person placed in position, what you need to do is to recognize the need and commit to doing what you could, like the Good Samaritan. Recognize the need and commit to doing what you can to provide for it. That makes you a channel for God's compassion. So that's what compassion is. The intercession is, of course, prayer for others. going to Jesus on behalf of another person. In their own case, they went physically. These days, you have to go spiritually. Intercession is effective if it is motivated by compassion. If you are going, if you are going to God as part of your effort to do something, to find something to do, you recognize a need, you are committed to doing what you can to provide for the need, and then as part of that commitment, you go to God. Which means if there is physically anything you can do at the human level, you will do it. You will do it first. But when you recognize that you need a lot of help from God, or that you cannot, like in this case, they couldn't do anything for the man. So they recognized that their only choice was to go to God. Physically at that time, but in prayer now. So if your intercession is motivated by that desire to provide for a need, then God will listen to you, because it's driven by your desire to do something that He has created you to do, to attend to a problem that He has placed on your path. And it doesn't matter what the problem is. Obviously, problem that you can solve yourself, you are expected to solve. If somebody needs a drink of water, you're expected to give the person a drink of water. You don't have to pray for it. But at times, exactly the same principle. You recognize something that somebody needs that you cannot help. And out of that great desire to provide for that need, you go on your knees and talk to God. God will listen. That is what intercession is. So the men were moved by compassion to intercede. And their compassion was very effective, because compassion represents doing one of the things that God has told us to do as part of living in His image, which Christ taught us through the Sermon on the Mount. The fourth beatitude says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness." That is, if you have a strong desire to do something that represents your function as God's ambassador, then that strong desire to do that is a thirst for, or hunger for, righteousness. And God said that that thirst or that hunger will be filled. And in addition, you will be blessed for having that desire. So when you are driven, anything you do is driven by compassion, then God will give you a hand in doing it. And if out of that compassion, you pray for help, you pray for Him to help you, He will listen. Well, there are other examples in the Bible. Let us look at them. The first one, we remember this is this we discussed quite extensively in a previous Bible study. That was Peter's escape from Herod's prison. Well, Herod first of all killed James, and he thought, he felt that the Jews liked that, so he arrested Peter. They put Peter in jail to await a mock trial and execution, because it was during the Passover. He didn't want to kill him during the Passover. So the members of the church, members of Peter's church family, realized that this man was going to kill Peter. So they prayed ceaselessly for him. They gathered in the house of Mary, the mother of Mark. Mark, the Mark we know, the one that wrote the gospel we are reading today, in fact. They gathered in her house, and there they prayed and prayed and prayed and never stopped praying for Peter. We know that the angel rescued God sent an angel to the prison to rescue Peter. And then as soon as Peter came out, he went and gave testimony. This is the Bible study we used to talk about our relationship with God in accepting what we have to do to accept help and utilize help from Him, to accept a lift. The title of the Bible study was Accepting a Lift from God. Because God took Peter, took him out, then left him to do the rest. But that's not the subject of today's Bible study. The subject is that the church prayed for him ceaselessly and God listened. God granted their prayer. He released Peter from jail. He helped Peter escape from Herod. This is in Acts chapter 12, verses 1 through 19. We are not going to read it because we've read it before, but we hope that you will go back and take another look at the Bible passage. Peter's miraculous escape from Herod's prison, that one of the factors that contributed to that escape was intercession by his church. And the intercession there is similar to what we will do today. They prayed, because by that time Christ had left, had gone back to heaven. So they prayed ceaselessly. The same way, if you recognize a need today and you try, you are committed to doing what you can to provide for the need, if it gets to a point where you realize that you really don't have, that providing for that need is beyond your human resources, then interceding is one of the ways that you can try to provide for the need. You go to God, you take it to God in prayer, like we sing in the famous song. Well, there is another example of Moses with the Israelites in the desert. You remember Moses had sent people to scout out the land, Canaan. He sent, I think, 12 people, 11 or 12 people, 12, to go and scout out the land. The 12 people were led by Joshua. When they came back, Joshua and Caleb gave very good account. They gave hopeful account. They told the Israelites, yes, the land is flowing with milk and honey and we can take it. But the other 9 people, the other 10 people gave a very frightening account of what they saw. They said, yeah, it's a good land, all right, but the people there will eat us alive if we try to go there. And then they didn't stop there. They blamed Moses and Aaron, and then they blamed God. They actually revolted and said, look, we are going to find somebody to lead us back to Egypt. Why did you bring us here? So God talked to Moses and said, look, I'm fed up with these people and I'm going to send a plague to them and kill them all off. Well, Moses pleaded with God. Let us read about this in Numbers 14, verses 13 to 19.
The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt?
Okay, wait. We are starting from verse 11 instead of 13. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Numbers 14, verse 11.
The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, in spite of all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them, but I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they.
Before we proceed, notice something here. God is saying that He will strike down the Israelites. He will destroy them with a plague. But He promised Moses, say, I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they. So there is a good reason here for Moses to say, okay, we'll just go back and tell the people, okay, God is not happy. That would have been the selfish thing to do. Then let us see what Moses did, starting from verse 13.
Moses said to the Lord, "Then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power you brought these people up from among them. And they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, Lord, are with these people, and that you, Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put all these people to death, leaving none alive, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on the oath, so he slaughtered them in the wilderness. Now may the Lord's strength be delivered, just as you have declared.' The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. In accordance with your great love, forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now."
Yeah, so you see this great prayer. Of course, in this case, Moses was talking to God directly, not person to person, because God was not there in a human form, but his presence was felt. So Moses was talking to him. So God had told him, "I'm going to destroy these people because they've rebelled against me. They've rejected the people I sent to them. They are not doing things the way I expect them to do." Then he made Moses a very sweet offer. Moses ignored the offer made to him personally and appealed to God on behalf of the Israelites. So you can see that selflessness, and then you can see in appealing to God also, he was appealing on behalf of the Israelites, but also telling God that this is for his glory, for his honor, to preserve his honor and glory. He needs to forgive these people. So his intention was not to serve his personal interest. He was talking to God, he was appealing to God because he wanted to serve the interest of the Israelites. He had compassion on them. He saw a big problem they had, and he was appealing to God to forgive so that they don't get into this problem that he had promised. And God didn't listen to him, because what he did was he changed the punishment. He said, "Okay, I'm not going to kill them. I'm going to leave them here. They won't go to the promised land. They are going to wander until this generation dies off. Then the next generation will go to the promised land." But that was because of intercession. So Moses pleaded with God to have mercy for mercy for the Israelites, and then to preserve God's glory and honor. So this is selfless intercession. And the characteristics of successful intercession is that it's based on compassion and it is selfless. That's what we are learning from this encounter with experience of Moses, Israelites encountering God. Is that the intercession was successful, but telling us that selfless intercession that is based on compassion will be successful with God. Selfless and driven by compassion. And through the examples we see in the New Testament, we see that Christ responds positively to intercession if the intercession is motivated by compassion, selfless, delivered with faith. And we see a number of examples. One is, of course, the example of the group of men that took a paralyzed man to Jesus. They were selfless. They had faith that they could get there, that if they could get there, he would be healed. And they had compassion on this man. That was the whole reason for taking him. They wanted to help him. We didn't read the example of the centurion that went to Christ and said, "Look, my servant is lying in bed in great pain." Again, Christ healed his servant because of his faith. So again, it is selfless intercession, compassion on his servant. He saw the need that his servant had and wanted to provide for this need. Then delivered in faith. There is another case where a ruler went to Christ. His daughter had died. He went to Christ and said, my daughter had died, but if you come and touch him and touch her, she will wake up. So because of his faith, Jesus went with him and woke the girl from dead, raised the girl from dead. So all these examples tell us that intercession will be successful if it is motivated by compassion, because compassion feels a purpose for which God created us. And if it is persistent, like ceaseless, like in the case of the church for Peter, if it is selfless, like all the cases that we looked at, being selfless means it's focused on others. And in the case of Moses, it was focused on others and focused on God, focused on preserving God's honor and glory. And in all cases, the intercession was delivered with faith. And through these examples, we will learn that these are the things that will make an intercession successful. It's driven by compassion, it's selfless, it's persistent, and it's delivered with faith. When all these conditions are satisfied, your intercession will be successful. This is what God promised us. So it's not just a story. This is exactly what He promised us, and we have examples in the Bible that illustrate it. Well, that brings us to the end of this Bible study, and we pray that you have learned something that will make a positive impact on your life, something that will help you intercede appropriately when you encounter a problem, and that your intercession will help you help people and will bring you closer to God's purpose for your life. Thank you for participating with us, and God bless you.
God bless you.